Shalom, dear friends. We continue the series of precursory lectures or commentary on the Epistle to the Hebrews. I decided to conduct these lectures or lessons in order to prepare you and explain some concepts so that it would be easier to understand later the text that we will read from Hebrews. I'll remind you in a couple of words what we studied during the last lecture. First of all, I told you that there is a big question about who wrote this epistle. To whom was it written? Obviously, it was written to Jews, apparently those living in Alexandria, who accepted Messianic belief in Yeshua. Although, this epistle can be applicable to all those Jews living all over Israel and in the diaspora, and who were well accustomed with the terminology, such as high priest, sacrifice, redeemer, Hanavi, prophet, high prophet, who knew the nuances of what happened in those times. And I was saying that there are a lot of people who are inclined to the opinion that it was Luke who was the beloved doctor, according to the scriptures. And as some people joke, if he was a doctor, he obviously was a Jew. Of course, this is a joke, but speaking about the fact that he was the author of the Epistle to Hebrews, the question that doesn't really change anything. We're just studying the scriptures. What else did we learn last time? From the weekly reading of Shoftim, the book of Judges, I explained that, according to the Jewish understanding of Messiah expectation, he will possess 4 anointments in order to reveal the Lord's presence to the earth. And from the book of Exodus, we learn that God said, "I will be present among the nation of Israel. If you will build a temple for me, and you will listen to me, and will follow my ways, then, through supernatural, not clear to the human's way, I will speak to you." And I interpreted the word Mishkan, M, Melech, king, Sh, Shofet, judge, K, Kohen, high priest, N, Nevi, prophet. Through these 4 ministries, the Lord says, "I will influence the nation of Israel, and through the nation of Israel, other nations, so that harmony would exist." And we learned that all these 4 titles were supposed to be inherent in Messiah. When Yeshua came, 2 of these titles were accomplished 100% with his life. He himself and others called him a prophet similar to Moses. If you will not listen to this prophet, your soul will ikaret, will be crossed out from the nation of Israel. And as Cohen, and in Hebrews and in many other passages in the New Testament, it is shown that he is an intercessor, high priest, who put himself in the position of special intercessor, more than any human intercessors. What about the positions of the king and the judge? Theoretically, obviously, they belong to Yeshua, but practically this did not happen yet. It will happen when he returns during his second coming. He will be the king of Israel, to establish his king's authority and in order to judge the nations and the people according to their deeds. This we studied last week, while today we will continue studying the theme of our lecture, Mishkan. Mishkan David, David's tabernacle. The tabernacle of David is once again related to the word Mishkan, which I already explained, but here, through David's tabernacle, which is mentioned here and there, in Acts chapter 15, in the book of Amos, during the life of King David himself. We'll talk about it later. But why is it important for us to understand the moment related to David's tabernacle? Because there, we begin to understand all the grandiosity of the ministry which is entrusted to Yeshua, and which, to a certain degree, is entrusted to each of us. And as Acts chapter 1 says, Yeshua, becoming the high priest of the great tabernacle, there, in Acts it is called David's tabernacle, while in Hebrews it is called the heavenly tabernacle. And we, priest, king's priesthood, are divided in 2 groups of people, Jews believing in Yeshua and non-Jews believing in Yeshua. And we want to now go together through this moment in order to better understand it. But I have to begin from the logical beginning so that it would be much easier to each of you to understand it and to follow the text while I am explaining. Thus, David's tabernacle. Look, what I'm giving to you is not a Torah coming from heaven. This is my personal understanding. And if you'll provide us feedback with your wishes, thoughts, and ideas, reflections, it would be great, and I invite you to do this. So, I want to begin with the times which are called by the Scriptures the dark period of humankind, namely, after the Babylon construction. In the book of Genesis, chapter 10, it says that Noah had sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and out of them came 70 persons, as presented in Genesis chapter 10, who are the forefathers of 70 nations, which became the indigenous nations to thousands of nations and nationalities that nowadays exist on the earth. And in Genesis 10:9, it is mentioned the name of Nimrod, who was a mighty hunter before the Lord. And it's apparently that this person, so the traditions say, not only Jewish but also Sumerian and other traditions, that Nimrod apparently became a leader in the construction of the Babylon Tower, the aim of which was to build a name to a man against God. You, God, are there while we are here. The idea is similar to this. In Genesis 11, 5 through 6, it's written, "But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. And he said, 'Nobody will be able to stand against them, even the angels.' And it's written, 'The Lord came down and himself scattered their languages and made people to be of different nations and different groups, not understanding each other.' As a result of this, a certain chaos took place. It is similar to what would happen today if the connection between all internet networks would break, and as a result, there would be a great chaos. Then, such a chaos took place in humankind. It was a time when Babylon gave birth to two idol-worshiping belief systems, which function even today, and through which people worship idols. Some people worship having the religious understanding, while some, as a part of their secular life, without understanding what they do. It was exactly this time when in Babylon began the worship of Baal, the god of sun, which at that time was done through human sacrifice, while today we can consider it a similar worship, with all the abortions and killing of the unborn children, or other things which kill people, such as sterilization. Each one looks differently at this stuff. From the other point of view, in those times appeared the worship of the goddess of the heavens, to be more precise, of the heaven queen. And later this title was given to idols such as Ashtor, Ishtar, Ashtoreth, Astarta, what was named the cult of fertility, the essence of which concluded in sexual orgies. And nowadays, in the non-religious society, this is expressed by all the lechery and other things. You all know what I'm talking about. Everything remains today. But in those times, the darkness covered the earth. People didn't understand each other, angry at the Creator, worshiping idols, darkness. And among this darkness, God calls for Abraham and says, "Abraham, go with me. If you will be with me, then you and the nation will come out of you, will be a special nation in my hands, a tool that will correct everything, but you will be special." It was a time when there appeared the expression Am's Skula, a chosen people. In other words, especially close to him. For them, many things happen differently, not the same as all other people who find themselves under the network of Babylon. Probably in this expression itself, a certain aspect of God's faithfulness, God's relations, and some unusual things that happened to the nation of Israel. I'm telling this to you as the representative of the Jewish nation, but without any praise. It is God who does this, and not us. Some time ago, Bismarck wanted to receive proof of the existence of God. One of his counselors told him, "Look, Jews scattered all over the world. Anyway, they're preserved as a nation with their identity." And more than 100 years after this discussion with Bismarck on this issue, have a look at what happens. The country of Israel begins. It is developed further and further and further. So Abraham and his relations with God, increasing relations with God, the peak of these relations is recorded in the 22nd chapter of Genesis, when God asked Abraham to bring Isaac as a sacrifice. During those times, it was a tradition among the pagans, but for God's people, how could something like this happen? It says in Genesis 22, God tempted Abraham, checked him. And the essence of that test was God's address to Abraham in Genesis 22:16. And here comes the mysterious text. For many years, I've been thinking about this text, and it's quite difficult for me to comprehend and understand it. I understand it only as a fact, as something that happened and that changed the whole history of the world. Genesis 22:15. The angel of the Lord called to Abraham from heaven. Here it is important to understand that the angel of the Lord represents the Creator. The Creator is unseen. He lives in the miraculous kingdom. He is above all, in front of all. He is greater than all. It's not clear. A man cannot see him because he will die, the scriptures say. And the angel, in fact, brings information to Abraham that otherwise he could have received by talking directly to God himself. But we know the Jewish expression that the one who is sent is equal to the one who sent him. In this situation, the Lord's angel represents the Creator. And here are the words, I swear by myself, declares the Lord. In other words, God says, I swear to you by myself. It's not clear at all. All the angels, cherubims, and seraphims, all the authorities of the universe, all that exists in the world, we know so little about them. All this is dust before the Creator. Each of these heavenly celestials, in comparison with people, who are the spiritual giants, apparently. And the one who is above all of them swears to Abraham. A simple promise would be enough, but he swears. A fabulous concept. Just take your time to think about it. The Creator swore to Abraham and said, if you will be with me, you will continue what you started. Because you have not withheld your son, your only son, then I will surely bless you. That is to say, in your life, blessings will be multiplied. You are mine. This is the biggest blessing. Blessing is not when you receive as a gift a Mercedes car. Mercedes by the end will decay and you'll throw it away, but where your heart is, there you are. I will be with you, and you will be with me. Am skula, close with me. I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky. This means that you will be in the initial calling that Adam once lost, as the stars in the sky. Later on, the same expression can be found in the book of Daniel. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens. In other words, in a certain special position. And he says, all your descendants will be there. And as the sand on the seashore, you will expand among the nations. Your descendants will take possession of the cities of their enemies. The first city was built by Cain. In the language of the scriptures, the city symbolizes some kind of a structure which is not from God. Please do not think that I say that certain cities are not from God, but in this expression, cities of their enemies, symbolizes everything that is against God. Your descendants will overcome all this, and through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. That is to say, through your nation, this is one of the interpretations of the Holy Scriptures. While the other interpretation is, through your offspring, meaning one of your descendants. We understand that it is said about Yeshua HaMessiah. And here, God says to Abraham, your nation will be Am Skula, my children. Later on, when the revelation begins to move forward, and we are already in Egypt, the nation expanded. There are 12 tribes, there are already thousands of them there, and the Exodus from Egypt, with Moses, 600,000 adults. Different historians understand differently this place in the scriptures, and some people say that 600,000 is not a numerical thousand, while they think it's about 600 families. Thus, this significantly reduces the number of those who got out of Egypt. There's also such an opinion that numerically they were around 30,000, or maybe more. Some say around 3 million. There are different opinions. It's not so important. God says to these people through Moses the following words. I'm reading Exodus 19:5. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possession. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to the Israelites. And the Lord says, not only that you are mine, you will become a kingdom of priests. What does it mean, a kingdom of priests? What does it mean? In other words, God gives to 12 tribes, to each tribe an appeal, a calling, capacity, possibility to represent the Creator on earth and to represent the nations to the Creator. What Aaron and his family of Cohens, Levites, were doing. Here, an overwhelming opportunity was given to the nation to become the priest, to 12 tribes, a tremendous number of people. Here it says, your nation. In fact, it is not limiting them just to men, but meaning all. It's a little unclear, but there's definitely some kind of connection to Aaron's meeting with God. But we know that the story, which is described in the book of Exodus, Moses goes up to the mount for 40 days to receive the continuation of Torah. During this time, the nation builds for themselves a golden calf and worships it. The punishment follows. From 12 tribes, only the tribe of Levi remain faithful. As a result, there are not 12 tribes of priests, but just one, just the tribe of Levi. That is to say that the program maximum is not accomplished. Instead, it is the program minimum. And in the frames of this program, God says to Moses, take Bezalel and build the tabernacle where my presence will be. This is called the tabernacle of Moses, the tabernacle in the desert. There was a fence, a courtyard, a basin for washing, an altar. After that, going into the first tent, there were candles and the bread of the presence. And then the next one was the Ark of the Covenant, in which were placed the scrolls. Later on, the scepter of Aaron was placed there, and the vessel with manna. In this construction, Mishkan of Moses, or the Tabernacle of Moses, it functioned all the time while the nation was in the desert. After the desert, the nation enters into the promised land and establishes the same tabernacle in Shiloh. Nowadays, this territory is near Samaria and is close to the Palestinian Authority, and the settlements are not too far from there. Previously, in past times, it was a place that was given to Ephraim, the place of Ephraim's tribe. Why namely Ephraim? There are many versions of the story. My modest interpretation is that Ephraim represented the nation of Israel, 10 tribes, while Judah represented 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin. The tribe of Levi was sort of among the tribes. So God's presence had to be with Ephraim so that Israel would receive the additional blessing of God's presence. Mishkan Moses, the tabernacle of Moses, stood in this place for approximately 300 years. Just think about that period, 300 years. I'm not sure that such a country as the USA exists for more than 300 years until now, while the tabernacle in those times stood for 300 years. That is to say, the place of God's presence. If you visit this place, it is special. It is situated not up high, but down low, with the mountains around it like an amphitheater. People were gathering there and watched how the priests were acting there during the holidays. This was a special place. This is how the tabernacle of Moses functioned. And here, King David begins to rule. We go according to the periods: Babylon, Abraham, Moses, and here we are at the time of David. David was a unique person. Here I want to make a couple of deviations from the Bible narrative. In the stories of the Jewish nation, people speak a lot and say different things about David. David is called a special person, and there's the following Jewish story. When Adam sinned and had to be expelled from the Garden of Eden, he asked God to show him all the future generations. I want to see all my descendants. And we're all the descendants of Adam. At that time, he had something special, not like our minds, and he could see all of them. And the Hebrew story says that he sees David as a flash, and he asks God, "Who is he?" "He is your descendant, David, a very special person." And Adam asks, "And why do I see him as a flash?" And God responds, "Because his destiny is to live just one day, to be born and to die on the same day." And Adam says, "God, you know that I sinned. I am punished. You gave me 1,000 years after life in Eden, and I will die after that. But I really want this person to live, so please take 70 years from my 1,000 years." We know that Adam lived 930 years and David 70 years. We do not know how truthful all this is, but the name of David is always extremely popular in the medium of the Jewish nation. There are always a lot of discussions about this, although there are critics, not Jewish, but others, who say that King David was nobody. He was a small king from a small tribe who fought here in the Middle East with different others, and in comparison with the kings of Egypt or Babylon, he was nothing and nobody. You know, from the human viewpoint, this opinion also is worthy of consideration. Maybe. The kings of Babylon were more mighty, and the countryside house of any of these kings might have been bigger than the whole construction in Jerusalem. But after thousands of years, nobody even recalls the names of these kings. While about the King David speak Jews and Christians and Muslims, and in general, in the world there is a well-known idea of King David. People who deal with history, architecture, sculpture, all of them know about King David. While about those great kings, and I use the word great in quotes, everyone forgot about them. The King David, a unique person. He also sinned, but there was something special in him. When he approached God, nothing could steal this unity, and he became the prototype of Messiah. One more Jewish story for connection. Adam's name, by letters, A-D-M in Hebrew. A for Adam, D for David, M for Messiah. That is to say that in the Jewish tradition, the way from Adam to the Savior, Messiah always goes through David. And we see that the New Testament adheres to this concept. But we wanted to talk about Mishkan, or the Tabernacle of David. And here we come to the new theme, Mishkan of David. We've come to this moment, and now I'll continue to tell you about it.